Channel. So this is Attorney Amian April Alcazar, your host for AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. So for tonight, we have our guest in person. He was able to join us, and thank you so much to Mr. Douglas Jackson. So he's a certified public accountant in the state of Tennessee, and he would tell us about his journey towards this field of accountancy for today. So as you know, accountancy is a profession that is usually involved in business, and it is the recording of different historical accounts and data pertaining to the finances of individuals, corporations, partnerships, and other entities. So can you please give greetings to our viewers, to all of the stakeholders in the education sector? Mr. Jackson, please.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are now.
Yes, thank you so much for being able to join us. So firstly, I'd like to ask you about your background. So when you were a young person, when and how did you decide that you actually wanted to be in the field of accountancy? Was it something familiar to you already?
Not very much. When I was young, I had no career goals, either in high school or my first and second year of college. I was the type of student who wanted to study what I wanted to rather than what I was assigned.
Yes. And
which presented challenges.
But so how did you meet the challenge?
There were things I liked to do and that I thought I was pretty good at and that I felt competent at.
What were your interests in?
Mathematics, history, geography, and in general, not really an academic field, but just problem solving.
Okay, so
whether it's mathematics or other problems.
So you had this head for numbers, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how and when did you actually decide about the field of study? Because as you mentioned, when you actually went to college, you were not yet sure you really wanted to be in this field of accountancy.
The fortunate thing about university education in the United States, the first 2 years of a 4-year program, general classes that almost everybody takes. By the third year, you need to have declared a major and start picking specific classes.
Exactly.
So toward the end of my second year, I did that.
Yes.
And I was really looking for economics, statistics, and accounting.
Okay.
But I ended up in accounting just because I started thinking about job prospects, career prospects later. And that seemed to be the clearest path.
Okay. Why was it clear compared to the other career path, you think, Mr. Jackson?
I think the demand for accounting majors were a little stronger. Many people in economics and statistics went into research and teaching. Whereas accounting majors went into business and organizations of all sorts.
Okay. So after you then decided that accountancy was really going to be your field of study, so what kind of skills, competencies, and learning experiences did you have to enhance your studies of accountancy?
I think a good general knowledge and understanding of business as a whole.
Yes.
Numbers and statistics were something that just came naturally to me, probably because my interest correlated with those.
Yes, to mathematics, yes. And so what sort of other activities did you involve yourself in when you were in the university?
Well, I like to research everything, not necessarily what I was assigned, but whenever I saw history, business history.
Yes.
Examples of fraud and investigations.
Yes.
Those interested me.
Yes. And
not necessarily that it was part of the curriculum, but it was just something whenever I read about it or came across current events or past, that sort of stimulated me.
But of course, you knew that eventually all of these trends, as you mentioned about fraud, about business history, is going to be so informative and knowledgeable with respect to your practice of accountancy. Is that correct?
I didn't really realize it at first. At first, I thought of accounting as more of bookkeeping, record-keeping work, preparing financial statements. I didn't realize until my last year of college and early in my working career, other opportunities that existed.
Yes. So after you were able to finish your accountancy, because as I mentioned, accountancy is normally a profession. So what sort of like regulations did you have to hurdle in order to practice as an accountant?
Actually, just to be a practicing accountant without being licensed, a 4-year university degree with a major in accounting. But in order to be a certified public accountant, you have to have 2 years of experience working as an accountant and pass a 4-part professional exam, which I took the exam about 1 year after graduating.
Okay. And so besides your passing the licensure exam, what kind of experiences in your work and career were so informative in the development of your career? Like you mentioned about the first 2 years of being an accountant or involving in the practice of the profession is very important.
Well, as a student, I worked all through my university years. The last 2 years, I worked at a bank data processing center in which we process client transactions.
Yes. And this was even before computerization, correct?
This was when we used cards, fed cards in.
Yes. Put into the mainframes?
Exactly, into a large mainframe. We would generate printed reports. We didn't have screens and databases and spreadsheets at that time. We'd have to print out reports. We'd have to meet with clients. I started getting a general understanding then. When I graduated, I accepted a position with a large electric utility who generated and transmitted electricity to about 8 million customers. And sold that. And I found the business end of that and technical end as well very fascinating. My first 2 years, I worked in a field called cost accounting. In which you had to do a lot of studies and you had to maintain and improve systems that accounted for cost. Do a number of studies in which so that the business managers could make decisions based on different opportunities, cost benefit studies, etc.
So that was the beginning of your practice of the profession. How then did you develop onwards to the different practice of accountancy?
Right. After 2 years, the business, the electric utility, opened up an inspector general's office in which they did audits and investigations. Completely independent from management.
I see.
And that fascinated me because that involved not only just checking the work of what others are doing, but learning systems, both technical and business, determining if there are any problems, why there are problems, and formulating solutions.
So I think we go back to like your interest being a problem solver, because when you mentioned that this was about auditing and fraud, so they have concerns when they come up with these types of activities related to accounting. Is it not correct?
Yes. And it turned out that in that position, 99% of it had to do with looking at systems, probably 1% or less of fraud, because it just didn't exist to any grand scale. And that probably was because of the industry I was working in.
Which was more of like electric utilities.
Yes, generating and selling electricity.
I see. So after you had this opportunity for both the practice of the profession, like basically on the cost accounting, and then moving on to like auditing and fraud, how then were you able to really like navigate the whole professional practice as an accountant, and what kind of advices would you give to the young people who would eventually want to be in the practice of the profession?
Joining professional organizations.
Yes, that's
and there were a number of those related to just auditing and accounting, and even the operation of electric utilities.
Yes.
Join the organizations, going to conferences, networking with those from other organizations. If you just keep yourself in a cocoon,
yes,
with blinders on, your development will be very slow or non-existent.
Exactly.
If you meet and talk with and listen to others and share your knowledge you have also.
Yes.
Your professional world expands much faster.
Definitely. And so from your decades of like experience in accountancy, what do you think are the qualities and competencies that need to be developed from a young person's perspective, and eventually as they go through the careers, so that they can be successful in the field of accountancy?
Curiosity, I think, was for myself most important, not just in my field of accounting or auditing, but in how the industry that I was working in operated as a whole. How does the electricity get from the coal or the hydroelectric plants to the substations and customers' homes and businesses at the end? Just step by step, everybody's job and their duties and responsibilities interested me.
So there was a systematic learning of the industry and the business that you actually found yourself in, rather than just like focusing, as you mentioned, on the numbers or maybe the problems or concern of the accountants or the accounting department in your particular company or agency.
Yes, very, very well summarized.
Yes, okay. So after that period of time when you would actually be in the profession already, was there also a point in time when you were tasked with training and developing others in the same profession? So how did you also manage that particular function of a practitioner in your profession?
Yes, we were actually involved. We would have a group or a team that we would rotate in and out of that would interview new applicants.
Yes.
Once a new applicant we had a new hire, then they were assigned to senior staff and management who would mentor them. And we would have formal training programs. We would have feedback. Another very important trait I learned was tolerance, understanding, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, so to speak.
So empathy.
Yes.
And so during this period of time when you were practicing both your profession, actually being involved in business management because you had the opportunity to train other people, were there also other interests that you had besides the actual practice of the profession in order to grow yourself as an individual?
Well, yes. During my early career, computer technology was advancing fast.
Yes.
And we hadn't embraced it early on, but I did have an interest in that, not only from applying computer technology to the work we did, doing things online rather than with pencil and paper and having massive amounts of paper.
Yes, exactly.
But also in terms of computer security, which is probably among the foremost concern of the computer technology segment now.
Cybersecurity, as they call it right now. But at the time when you were just beginning to learn about the effects of computerization in your industry, so how was that whole process of like learning and eventually trying to apply it to the practice of the profession?
It involved a lot of self-teaching because at that time there were not many courses or conferences you could go to that applied to that.
Yes.
But anything I could, any conference or course I could sign up for and would be approved for and funded for, I tried to attend.
So I think there's this quench for thirst for knowledge that you wanted to expand beyond what you already knew in terms of like the practice, and because there were like some developments that were even happening outside of the actual industry, but you saw that there was some development that could be applied. How did it guide you then to your eventual like success in the profession, being having this initiative and this foresight for trends and development?
I would like to say that I had foresight in the importance of computer technology in business.
Yes.
But I'll have to confess that it was just a topic that interested me. I didn't foresee how important it would
be eventually
until it fell on me.
Yes, really.
But at that time, I was curious about, interested in it. I bought, the little Atari and Commodore 64 computers that came out. I was learning how to program and modify them. There were user groups, not accounting, just user groups.
Exactly.
I would call them nerds.
Just exchanging information at the time.
Yes. And I wasn't as nerdy, as accomplished as the others, but everything they did fascinated me. And I wanted to learn and do things on my own. Ultimately, that became pretty important.
Exactly.
As the technology advanced and as applications for business and industrial use, commercial use, became available.
So as you said, curiosity and the initiative for learning was really crucial insofar as advancing in your particular profession was concerned. So can you also describe, like, you think the most pivotal role of accountancy or the field in business organizations, or specifically for the management of business organizations?
Could you repeat that again?
Yes. So can you please describe the crucial role of accountancy or the practice of the profession of accounting in managing business organizations?
Very simple. In order to have a record of what works, what generates revenue, what controls costs. You need accurate records for that.
Yes.
Not only for historic and current reporting purposes, but for future planning too. It's crucial. We like to say technology drives business, but finances do.
Yes.
You can have the technology if you don't have the finances to pursue and develop those.
Yes.
They'll take a very long time to come around.
Yes. So exactly, I think you were able to actually meld your interest, your skills of curiosity and initiative, and finally how it really applies to the business organization or entities that you actually were able to like practice in. So in the end, what kind of advice would you give to those who are thinking about having a career in accountancy, the kind of interest that they should have, the qualities that they can develop, and the sort of experiential learnings and opportunities that they should be looking for?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say do as I did.
Yes, always. Each individual is unique.
Exactly. But I do believe curiosity and feeding your interest.
Yes.
because if you're doing work that you enjoy, that interests you, you're going to do a much better job.
Exactly.
What I didn't do that I think would have advanced my career faster and better was to have foresight into the future. Where are trends going?
Yes.
I was generally focused on what was in front of me. So I think it is critical to look at trends in the future.
And to try to see what could be on the horizon.
Yes.
Beyond what is current to you and present that you are involved in. Well, so I think for the last parting word, Mr. Jackson, so because you had a very strong connection to the Philippines, and of course we have the listeners mostly in the Philippines from the education sector. So what can you say insofar as the development, of course, of this field, particularly because the Philippines is a developing country and there is much economic development that needs to be done for the country?
I may have you repeat that again.
Yes.
Just so I'll...
Yes. So we have a very strong affinity to the Philippines and a connection to the Philippines, having resided in our country. And so you know that our country is a developing country.
Yes.
And so there is a lot that needs to be done, especially for the economic development.
Yes.
And one of that would be, of course, initiatives for the development of business organizations in the country. So how do you see the role of accountancy in business organizations in the Philippines, specifically for developing our country?
I think looking at what other successful businesses and economies are doing.
Yes.
Not necessarily copying what they're doing, but taking the best parts that fit within your culture of business, the type of business you're in. Never be complacent and think, I developed this system, it's the best. Always look at what others are doing and take the best of what they're doing and apply it.
Yes. See, so it has been really a most informative and productive discussion that we have had. So we thank you so much for being in person. I'm so happy that we were able to meet here in the state of Tennessee, your home country.
Yes.
And I'm so looking forward to meeting you again in the Philippines very soon. Yes, so we look forward to having again another fruitful discussion. So thank you so much, Mr. Jackson. Any parting words now to our young people, especially those who are just thinking about their career prospects currently?
Yes. Whenever you have to take professional exams, if you don't pass the first time, keep doing it.
Yes.
It took me 2 times to pass the CPA exam. The first time I was devastated, especially when I had friends and classmates that did pass.
Yes.
And I was ready to give up, but I thought one more time.
Yes.
And I did pass. If you don't get the job offer you want from a specific employer or industry, keep trying. Take what you can get and always look toward what you want to do.
Okay. Well, that's so crucial right now because now is kind of like the time when our students are towards graduation.
Yes.
There's a lot that they need to look forward to, a lot of things to prepare. The new chapter of their lives are about to begin. And so it is so important to take this advice from those who have gone before us, the experts, but at the same time, they went through the process. And so they can guide us, not necessarily because we're going to take the same process, but similarly, we can take some lessons learned that they had. And I think that was the point of Mr. Jackson. Persistence will win out and drive you if you are determined in your particular profession.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Jackson, for joining us today. So we'll be right back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.